Introductory Algebra Homework 39 starts off where we left off when we had similar figures. We have a word problem where we can set up similar figures. Sometimes they'll draw the shape out for you. Sometimes you have to sketch it yourself. It says a man wants to measure the height of a nearby tower. He places a 9-foot pole in the shadow of the tower, so the tower of the pole is exactly covered by the shadow of the tower. The total length of the tower shadow is 171 feet. The pole casts a shadow that is 3.5 feet long. How tall is the tower? Well, what happens is you have a bigger triangle here, and then you have the smaller triangle that's similar here. So I could have them separated into my big triangle from my tower and my little triangle from my pole. Now it looks sort of like those previous ones we did with similar figures. It says the pole is 9 foot tall. 9 foot. The total length of the tower's shadow is 171 foot. The pole shadow, 3.5. We are trying to find how tall is my tower. So if I'm using my proportion for similar figures, the x corresponds with the 9, the height of the tower to the height of the pole. The 171 corresponds with the 3.5. The shadow of the tower to the shadow of the pole. So again, we just solve this by setting up our proportion and cross multiply. X times 3.5 would be 3.5x. 9 times 171, 1,539. And then, of course, to solve it, we're going to divide by our 3.5. We get 439.714, blah, 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 blah. We want to round our answer to the nearest foot. In other words, round it off to the nearest whole number. Since there's a 7 behind here, I have to round my 39 up to 40, right? 9 rounds up to 10, so 439 would round up to 440. 440 feet. Number 2, they weren't nice this time and didn't draw the picture. But it says, a pole that is 3 meters tall casts a shadow that is 1.79 meters long. At the same time, a nearby building casts a shadow that is 41.25 meters long. How tall is the building? So if my sun was up here, and I have my building and the sun's rays coming down making a shadow, and I have my pole and my sun's coming down, I could draw it in the same spot, but it's going to make the shadow. And I've got my two similar figures kind of like on that previous one. My pole was 3 meters tall. It had a shadow of 1.79 meters. My building shadow is 41.25, and we want to know how tall is my building. So again, setting up my proportion, x over 3 is going to equal 41.25 over 1.79. Whoa, my board's going crazy on me. Let me move it back to where it belongs. 1.79. Now again, I have the height of the building to the height of the pole, shadow of the building to the shadow of the pole, so that things line up right. You could have, if you would have done the pole first, had the 3 over x and the 1.79 over the 41.25. It's going to end up working the same way as long as whatever shape you start with, you're consistent when you do your proportion. So again, we've got to solve this by cross multiplying. So we're going to get 1.79x equals 3 times 41.25. 3 times 41.25 is 123.75. We're going to divide by our 1.79 to solve this. And so we get 69.134, so forth. Again, we want to round it to the nearest meter, so we're going to round it to the nearest whole number. So we're going to say 69 meters. So my building's 69 meters, my pole's only 3 meters. One more of those. Number 3. Number 3. It says, a man wants to measure the height of a nearby tower. He places a 9-foot pole in the shadow of the tower so that the shadow of the pole is exactly covered by the shadow of the tower. The distance between the pole and the tower is 176 foot. The pole casts a shadow that is 3.75 feet. So, my pole is 9 feet. My shadow is 3.75. So my small triangle, I have 9 and 3.75. Then it tells me that the distance between the pole and the tower. So here's my tower and here's my pole. This distance is 176. But when I do my triangle, I need the shadow of the tower. So I'm trying to find the tower. And how big is its shadow? Well, I have this 176, but I still have the 3.75 over here. Obviously, the figure is not drawn to scale. It says that here. But I would need to add those together and use 179.75 for the full length of the shadow of the tower. And so, x over 9 is going to equal 179.75 over 3.75. And now I have my proportion that I can solve. So cross multiplying, 3.75x is going to equal 179.75 times 9. 1617.75, 1617.75. Again, in order to solve that, we end up dividing by our 3.75. We get 431.4. We want to round it to the nearest foot, so we're just going to say 431 feet is how tall our tower is.